Hi, everyone. I'm Afton Brazzoni, and this is my Changemaker Conversations interview series. You may remember, if you've been watching the series for a while, that in April, Trish Tutton was actually my very first guest on this show. And at that time, it was still really early in the COVID-19 pandemic. We were about a month in. So for those who missed that video, I want to welcome Trish. I'm so excited to have her back. And I would just love it, Trish, if you could just start off by telling everyone a little bit about yourself and about your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me back. I actually did not realize that I was the first guest. So now I just feel.
Oh, yes, you totally were.
Well, I'm glad to be back. And yeah, for those who don't know me, I am a speaker and a mindfulness teacher, and I really help people live and work happier. That's right. Live and work happier, especially now. But I do this through keynotes, workplace trainings. I have a one-on-one mentorship program. I have digital programs. And I basically teach people techniques, mindfulness and mindset techniques that help them to find a sense of happiness and peace right now. And again, I know some people will be like, wait, now? Like in a pandemic? Now? But really, the idea is that we essentially have little control over the world, right? And we've seen that unfold. We're continuing to see that unfold. But we can consciously choose our actions and our attitudes. And when we choose those in a specific way through our mindset and mindfulness techniques, we're really supporting our quality of life, no matter how kind of crazy things get, which they've gotten a little crazy.
Yeah, I think that's a really great lesson. Definitely something that we learned, back when we spoke in April and over the 6 months that we just have no control over it. And like you said, it's about having the tools and the techniques, to really thrive in the situation. So with that being said, I'd love to kind of walk back a little bit and just talk about how things have evolved in your business since April. I know at the time you were getting everything ready to go digital, as a lot of us were. Yeah, so I'd just love to hear about what the journey has been like for you.
Yeah, so not obviously a surprise to hear that a ton of things went virtually. There's still, some places where I was speaking conferences and keynotes that I had lined up have kind of yet to figure out what their next move is. They might, just postpone until next year, just kind of skipped over 2020, their events in 2020 and postpone. But there were then, once people kind of, I think, settled into like, okay, this is going to be our reality, everybody started going virtual. And some cool opportunities came up that I actually never would have had if this didn't happen. So again, kind of to harken back to what I teach, these mindset techniques, it's like, I was asking myself, how can I focus on the opportunities and the good things that are coming out of this scenario using my practices rather than focusing on kind of what I lost and what fell through the cracks. So I've done, quite a few kind of things like keynotes, conference speeches, lots coming up September and October. It's like prime conference season. And then workplace training. So I've been working with a couple of organizations over some time. So we've been working together normally kind of 3 to 4 months at a time, where I'll come in and do a virtual session every week. And I think what people found, again, it was kind of like we were all just in shock mode. And then it was like, okay, I think that this might be a marathon, not a sprint. And I think people were realizing, their teams, their staff were needing support, right? I think what we're seeing is just people, we're all in stress mode. And it's like the longer we're in that stress mode, the more kind of effects come out into the open, and we're struggling mentally and emotionally. So I definitely have been, really grateful to work with some companies to support their people in that way. Another thing that's just interesting that's evolved more is my one-on-one mentorship program. I felt like that's actually full right now for me. And I found that it was kind of like this group of people who were still working. So they had the stresses of work, continuing. They now had to work from home, most of them. They had all the other stresses that were already in their life before this, and then adding on more. And so, yeah, I've had pretty much a full roster for my one-on-one mentorship since, I guess, April. And that's been really great to work with people one-on-one and really figure out how do they integrate these techniques into their life in a realistic way for them that is, actionable and fits into their life and supports them in a really inspiring way, I guess.
I love that. I remember back in April, we talked about how, if companies weren't already realizing that their staff were going to need support in areas like being more mindful, managing stress, trying to see the positive, I would say that now it's completely undeniable. So, I mean, there's such a huge need for the teachings that you're doing. And I think even outside of the workplace, obviously on the personal level, people are identifying that, this is something that they know they need to get the tools and going in for that one-on-one mentorship, which is awesome.
Exactly. I think, I think we're getting to a point with companies that they realize their employees are expecting support in this way, in general with their wellness, but especially their mental, emotional well-being. But some companies aren't. And so it's really encouraging to see people taking that initiative for themselves, right? That they're not willing to just suffer through this and that they're willing to actually make a change. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really good point. I've been speaking with a lot of entrepreneurs over the summer. So it's like, if you don't have this in place at your company, this is something that you can put in place either if you're a business owner or in your personal life, because it's just not, we just can't neglect the mental health and the well-being aspect of things anymore.
Absolutely.
So I think, that was kind of one of the things I was going to ask you about, was specifically employee productivity working from home, and companies really realizing that, like, in order to have the most productive employees possible, people need to be in a great headspace. I think obviously that's something that we've seen large companies, like Google and others in the States, announcing that people aren't necessarily going to be back to work until maybe midway, 3/4 of the way through 2021.
Yeah.
I think those really relevant themes, I'd love to get your thoughts on the significance of those things, like working from home as we head into the winter season where, days are shorter and colder, and what can people do, and maybe what should employers know about how to keep people's spirits up and healthy?
Yeah, I think it's really just about remembering, like, I think we like to have this idea that we're machines and that we can just like power through, right? It's like, okay, everybody just suck it up. We can do this, but like reality is we're not. There's the whole saying, like, we bring our whole selves to work, and we can't just turn off the things that are creating anxiety for us or frustration, or those things that are, for lack of a better word, keeping us up at night. We can't just flip a switch when we walk into our now home office and be like, okay, all that's gone. I leave it at the door. And now I show up and I'm super creative and super intelligent, and I'm calm when I'm, talking to my colleagues maybe about a stressful problem that we need to solve. Or like, we cannot do that. We don't do that. I remember doing a session with, as I was mentioning that I'm working with some of these companies over like a 3-month period. I did one session, and it was, I'll call it a softer session. It was around compassion for ourselves and compassion for others. And we did a short practice about finding someone in your life who maybe creates a little bit of like irritation for you. Like thinking about that person who like kind of bugs you a little bit, and then doing a bit of a mindfulness practice to send them what I like to call well wishes. It's like sending them support, wishing that even this person who kind of bugs you a little bit, wishing them well, wishing them to be happy, to be healthy, to be safe. And we got some feedback after the session, and a woman said specifically, she said, I've been having a lot of anxiety and frustration over a relationship in my life that's not really thriving at this point. And she said, it's been causing me so much anxiety and frustration. And thank you for this session, because it helped me find a little bit more peace in my heart around this person. And I just thought that was so interesting, because because of what I said at the beginning of my answer to this question, that we bring our whole selves to work. So this woman, when she was starting her work days, couldn't just turn off this frustration and, you know, these thoughts about this person. And, you know, imagine her trying to focus on something she has to do for work, and all she's thinking about is this other, you know, she's not focused. She's not going to be at her most creative, her most intelligent, her most engaged. So it's this piece of really considering our whole selves and nourishing our whole selves. And I think, like you said, going into winter, it's like, how many people are going to, on top of the stress that they're feeling due to everyday life, due to the pandemic, now they're going to have, you know, if they deal with seasonal affective disorder, they're going to be dealing with that. So it's really just, I think about setting yourself up for success. And if your employer does have some tools that you can lean into, then do so. You know, really kind of make yourself a plan for how you're going to support yourself moving into maybe these next few months. And then if your employer doesn't, seeking out that support on your own. And like I said before, it's just remembering, like, this is a marathon. We don't want to just use up all of our energy, you know, powering through. We want to take our time.
Yeah, I think that's really smart, especially as, you know, we don't really know how the next few months are going to unfold. I'm not sure if you can hear my dogs crying in the background, but I don't think they like the idea of this being a marathon. What would you say, maybe if you had, you know, a few quick tips for people who really want to either enhance or establish a mindfulness practice, maybe a gratitude practice, just, you know, anything to reduce stress over the next few months?
Yeah, for sure. So I'd say the first thing, if you're interested in mindfulness, is really connect to why. With anything that you want to start, whether it's a gratitude practice, a mindfulness practice, connect to why it's important to you. Because as humans, we are emotional beings. So when something is important to us and when we can really connect to why it's important, we are going to make time for it in our day. So even just taking that time to contemplate, like, why do I want to do this? Maybe it's to feel more calm in moments of stress. Maybe it's just to connect with myself because I'm usually so busy, you know, maybe managing family and friends and teams at work. And so kind of connect to that why. Another piece is whenever we start anything new. So this could be like, you know, you want to start running, or you want to start meditating, or you want to start eating less meat, or whatever it is. We have to be willing to tolerate imperfection. So what I mean by that is, normally when people pick up a new habit or something that they want to do in their life, they'll start doing it for a little bit. And as soon as they fail once, then failure becomes the pattern. We find that we're unable to tolerate imperfection very well. When we fail, that creates more failure, because we basically say, like, oh, well, I screwed up that day. So then, you know, we give it all up at that point instead of just letting that be a bump in the road. So being willing to tolerate yourself missing a few days, but keeping it up after that is huge as well. And then I guess if I'm giving 3 tips, these are my 3 tips. The third one would be to get some support. So support can look like different things. It might look like, you know, signing up for an app. You know, I know my husband recently, so he started meditating. He does not meditate to my voice, which I do not blame him for. That would be a little much. So he signed up for this app, and he's been really consistent because he paid money for it. You know, he invested his money that's important to him, his time, his energy, and he's been more consistent with that support. Maybe you find a friend who wants to do the same thing as you, who wants to incorporate mindfulness into your day, and you kind of have a buddy system. And you can be accountable to each other. And then, of course, you know, kind of the biggest step of seeking support would be working with someone like myself, someone who is a teacher and a mentor, something like that. So find a way to get support, and there's, lots of ways.
Those are all really great tips that I think everybody can put to use. So thank you for sharing that. Was there anything else that you wanted to add? Let us know what's next for your business, how people can get in touch with you online.
Well, I do have something kind of fun that's come out of all of this. I started to think about I'm always thinking about how I can support people in their mindfulness practices, because almost everybody I talk to is like, I know how good it is for me, I want to do it, but I can't seem to stay consistent. So I started to think about what's helped me be consistent and kind of all of the practices that I've used over time to kind of create my routines in the morning. So to create a morning routine, some people have a routine at a different time of day. So I am actually just about to launch. I've created a little bit of a journal, and it's called Mindful Mornings Journal. And it basically has these prompts that takes you through a morning routine, a mindful morning routine that you can do in literally, it could take as little as 5 minutes, or if you wanted to extend it, it could take more like 20 minutes. And it's it'll be an actual product that people who work with me in a mentorship capacity, they'll get that with my program. And then it'll also be for purchase on my website for people to have a bit of a guide, right? That this little book will be like kind of having me to guide them through a morning routine. And it really is a collection of about 4 exercises that I have found to be so supportive in my morning routine to bring more kind of connection and more peace to the start of my day. So that's coming out soon. You can stay tuned.
I can definitely relate to a need for that. I struggle with the morning. Like it's always been something that, I really have to. I'm just not one of those early risers who's naturally, at their best in the morning. And I think that's huge. And especially heading into the winter where it is darker in the mornings, I think, that's going to be really valuable for a lot of people. So
yeah, something to look forward to when you wake up, and you can add, a coffee or a tea to that morning routine. But again, it doesn't even necessarily have to happen in the morning. I'm calling it mornings because I find a lot of people enjoy a routine to kick off their day, but it could even be, at any time. Honestly, people ask me like, when's the best time to meditate? I'm like, the time in the day that you're going to do it is the best time. So if that's not the morning, that's okay.
yeah, I guess like you said, if it's important to someone, they'll make that priority. And I totally would encourage everybody just to, I think with working from home, it's really easy to not step away from the desk, not take a lunch break, those kind of things. So whenever we can all get that time, or make that time for ourselves, make it a priority, is huge.
I think that you hit it on the head. It's like, I think most of us just wait for that time to come along. We're like, oh, I'll do this when I get the time. And then like, we just don't get the time. So it really is about making the time. But yeah, if anyone's interested in that, they can just stay tuned either to my website, trishtutton.com, or I'm pretty active on like LinkedIn and on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is @Trish_Tutton. So all the details will be there. I might have a little contest to do a draw for somebody to win a journal. So yeah.
Lovely. Well, I'll be personally staying tuned for that as well. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Trish. It was really nice to see you again, and really cool to kind of like go full circle over the past 6 months and know that, you're still bringing your mission so strongly into the world and still doing so many awesome things. So thank you.
Thanks, Afton.
And everybody, thank you for watching. As always, I'll be back in 2 weeks with another Changemaker interview, and I'd love it if you could subscribe to my YouTube channel. Take care.